Okay, so I will start with two critical slides. The first one is the first slide. The second one is the last slide of my presentation. Okay, for this part. My presentation is subdivided into two. I have a part on presentation, and then the second part is about report writing. Okay, and they will all be summarized. So, and I'll move quickly over them. I tend to talk a bit fast, so you'll pardon me if I move too fast, but I think at least you'll be able to understand what it is that you're talking about. Good, so now, this is my second slide. Okay, so in summary, what a presentation should look like is that it should contain the following. It should introduce an idea, that's number one. Share the purpose. You must tell people exactly what it is that you've presented an idea, what it is that you're talking about. Then you must try to bring in your audience to be at the same page with you. Then after that, once now you're together, the next thing that you do is you now pass the information to the audience. So first of all, capture the attention of the audience so that they know what it is that you're talking about. Then after that, take your audience step by step through what it is that you are talking about, or what your project is all about, whatever it is that you're presenting. Then after that, what you do is you need to show an outcome. Yeah. After all is said and done, what is the outcome of your work or the project that you have embarked on? Then after you've done that, what you do is you wrap up the project. So in other words, it's just like when you read a report, it always starts with an abstract so that people have an idea. It also has a title. Yeah, that's, I think I need to start with the word title. In that, first of all, someone knows, oh, okay, this is about frying potatoes. So they know, well, it's about cooking. Yeah, then you move on. Now, what is it that these people do not know about frying potatoes? You move on like that. Then once you have your audience attention, then now you get into that particular topic that you're talking about. Good. So a very critical aspect, this is actually now the last slide, and I'll be done after this. We have an element of what we call time. There is time management when it comes to a presentation. I have been given a whole hour, but I'll do 30 minutes. So once I start drifting into an hour, then of course I've exceeded my time. And time is a critical resource. So that is something that you need to spend a lot of time on, both preparing for the presentation and also during the presentation, because you're not given an unlimited resource called time. Then you must prepare adequately for a presentation. Then you must, as you are preparing your presentation, you must think of your audience. Yeah, think of the needs of your audience. For example, I did not think of your needs in that I thought that you're engineering students. So now the moment you put the word engineering there, you put off some people. But they have the needs anyway, but they also need to learn. Like in this case, it's a learning process. Then let there be a logical flow in your work. Yeah, do not take people to your methodology and then again you take them back to some history as to how it is that someone came up with a certain method of solving a problem. Talk about methods of solving problems and then talk about how it is that you're solving a particular problem. That logical flow is very important. Then we need to know exactly what it is that we are using. So in this case, I'm not using an overhead projector. I'm working with, it's called what, a smart board? What do they call this? Yeah? Good. Basically something like that. Then visual aids will include also images that you use to try and convey your ideas. Then also it's critical that anytime that you're presenting a project, let there be factual data to support what it is that you're talking about. Then again, you must also think of yourself being the presenter. Good. So the last statement says that this is also the last slide. That means that it will come at the end. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so three critical elements of a presentation. We have the presenter, we have the presentation, and the audience. Anytime that you're preparing a presentation, you must think of these three. Yeah, like I said, I think I missed out on the red part, but we will see how that works out. Next slide, please. So, it is critical that you connect with your audience, and there are many ways of doing that. The topic could be one thing. There are so many ways in which you have to try to connect with your audience. Like on a hot afternoon like today's, it is very possible that people start dozing off and yet they came here with a lot of interest to learn. So what do you do in order to engage them actively? That is the only way your audience will be able to learn. Yeah. Okay. What exactly do you look for when we are trying to connect with our audience? One is the needs and the desires of your audience. My audience today, this afternoon, wants to know something about presentation. They also want to know something about report writing. Yeah. So that is exactly what I need to deliver. Then I also need to know exactly where they fall. Am I talking to very technical people? Am I talking to university management, students, colleagues, something like that? Yeah. And then, of course, the interest. That should help you tailor. Even the amount of detail will also be driven by the interest of the audience. Then, of course, am I talking to my live audience, or am I being streamed or something? Yeah, am I being streamed? Not really. Okay, so then the number, the demographics, the attitude, and the knowledge. Some of these will be assumed, others are factual. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So you also have to, as in this is basically just a demonstration of how it is that you need to relate with your audience, because it is possible that you start talking and of course everyone is busy doing their own thing. I think this is the greatest challenge we normally have in the classrooms today with technology. Okay. Next slide, please. Good. Now, we have two types of presentations. We have informative presentations and persuasive presentations. Now, informative presentations, it is a presentation like this, where basically I am trying to bring out some points, and then I will need also to repeat a lot of facts so that at least you get to know exactly what effective presentation is all about. Yeah, that is an informative presentation where I want you to learn something from my presentation. But then we also do have what is called a persuasive presentation, and this is actually what you also, it's a skill of presentation you need to learn, especially when you have a project that you also want to sell to some investors or something like that, also to your audience. If it's, for example, let me talk about final year project. It's a final year project you're dealing with, and you need to convince the people that are examining you that you actually know what you did, you know the content of your work, etc., etc. So that is now a persuasive presentation. So it's not just theoretical. Good. And it's critical that you understand and you present your points well. Otherwise, you'll end up losing your audience. Good. Equipment that you use. I just asked, what do you call this board? What is it called? It's not a smart board, eh? Okay. So unfortunately, it's not captured there because I just couldn't remember what it's called when I was preparing this presentation. But let's just call it, it's just an overhead presentation screen or something like that. We also use LCD projectors. We can also work with flip charts, and we can work with blackboards or whiteboards, yeah, whichever is applicable. Good. Now, of course, this is the most familiar technology that we have. I wanted to pause a bit on this because previously, the board that you have on the right was a roll-up board where you needed to project to. Today, it's basically a roll-up, or is it roll-down in this case, which also does the projection work itself. Yeah, good. Just to move on. Good. So much about the equipment. Now, let's think about the formatting of the presentation that you make. By default, most of us will work with PowerPoint, isn't it? Yeah, we are all familiar with PowerPoint. Are there any other presentation softwares that exist that you come across or that you work with? Yeah, they're there. Yeah, there are many. For example, you can do your slides in Word and then convert them to PDF and make a presentation out of that. But it's not very effective. But we also do have other softwares that will exist for the same purpose. Anyway, PowerPoint does present to us design templates, or gives us design templates, and this really eases our work of presentation. When you're working with the design templates, you must think of the following elements. How it is that you make the various, or how it is that you present your various subtopics, introduction, body, the conclusion. The content, how does the template that you're working with help you present the graphs? You must also think of the use of color so that you engage your audience, because if the presentation was just monotone, white and black, then it's clear, but at some point in time people get bored. Then you must also think of things like animations to bring out a point, or a video, basically to help you elaborate how it is that some things work, or maybe you just explain a certain idea, then you can borrow a video, or you can use a video to now help or to put your audience into the proper perspective of what it is that you're talking about. Then finally, you must also think of whether your presentation can also be made or given out in terms of notes or handouts. Okay, good. So maybe just to mention this, maybe these are things that you are familiar with, but I think they're always worth mentioning. Try as much as possible to have a common background for all your slides. Do not have slides that are yellow in background and then you have other slides that are blue in background. Let them have the same theme. Then of course, be careful with the use of logos, project names, and pictures. You could try as much as possible to ensure that, for example, if you're working with logos, I was trying to look for this logo, I couldn't get it in the short time that I used to prepare this, that you have it well spread so that it connects you. You know that these slides are actually prepared specifically for this audience. Good. Think also of the kind of font that you use in your presentation. Try as much as possible to ensure that you use the same consistent font. So if it's size 24, let it be size 24. Now the choice of font also depends also on the projection device that you're using and the proximity of the audience to the screen. Good, so like this one, I can comfortably work with 18, but if I work with 18 or 14, I'll end up putting too much text. But think about that. Good. Let me just say something also. The simple and non-destructive does relate also to fonts. There are specific fonts that we use for purpose of a presentation, and there are those ones that actually do not suit presentations. Good. So again, also when it comes to color, ensure that you have the proper contrast. You do not have a white background with the light gray text, because then the audience will struggle to read. Then also try as much as possible to work with horizontal slides. By that, what we mean is ensure that everything flows left to right. Yeah, and it's not Arabic or Chinese, old Chinese, where you read from top to bottom. Okay, good. So sometimes the selection of the template may negatively influence your communication with your audience. For example, next slide. Good. From the distance where you're seated, which one is the most legible of these? Which one? None. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe number 4 or something? I don't know. The last one. Okay, well, if I made them a bit bigger, then maybe that would have made more sense. You'd have at least seen that maybe the last one is a bit more legible. The first one would be okay, but if you have a whole presentation in that color, your audience will get tired of listening to you. So not unless you have like 7 slides, it's okay, you can use that. Yeah, but if you're going to use, if your presentation is going to last an hour, like the 1 hour that I've been given, try to work with white and black. or white in another color, not dull colors, because then the eyes also get tired. Again, also if you work with a lot of white, as I did, then that's also tiring. So a good balance helps. The last one there is a good presentation slide. Next. Good, so content of your presentation. I will do this in 3 slides. There's what you call the purpose of the presentation. Yeah. Let your audience understand what exactly it is that you're setting out, and again, engage your audience in your presentation. But again, some of these things that I'm putting in there, they may not be appropriate at all times. If you're trying to, you've been given 5 minutes and you're trying to convince some potential investors to invest in your project, you would try and knock out some of these humor, catchy phrases, and so on and so forth, because they're really interested in the detail. What does your product do? Yeah, what does your innovation do? That's what they're interested in. And the sooner you get to that point, the better. And spend a lot of time, or spend as much time trying to elaborate or trying to bring them on board, rather than just to engage them to listen to your presentation. Okay, but to a certain extent, you may also want to, for example, request your audience also to ask each other, I mean, do you think this product would actually make any sense? You know, something like that. So you may be interested in, for example, engaging your audience also for them to interact with each other. That way you make the presentation more engaging. But again, your audience, very critical, very critical. So depending on who your audience are, that will tell you what to include and what to exclude from what has been presented there. And of course, let your audience understand the purpose of your presentation. And the other thing is ensure that they will go home knowing that you know what it is that you're talking about. Yeah, you didn't come to present someone else's work, or you didn't copy-paste the presentation, like I said. Next slide. Good. Now, for the purpose, I talked about this, so I'll just summarize. What normally happens is that you must try as much as possible to use a logical manner to explain your point, or to bring home your point. And it is important for you to use relevant examples and of course connections. You know, how does your audience relate with what it is that you are talking about? Very, very critical. Then of course you must also state, talk about the things that you know the audience is aware of and the things they might not be aware of. Good. Next slide, please. Good. So again, during your presentation, it is important that you always recap on the topic, because that's what it's all about. For example, what is the purpose of the presentation, or what is the purpose of your innovation? Good. Then the next thing is the structure. Very quickly, just to mention, you have your introduction, you have the purpose that you talked about, and then of course you move to the actual working of whatever it is that you're talking about, and finally what it is that you want your audience to do. So if it's people you're selling the product to, very, very critical that you ensure that the purpose features in almost all your slides. Yeah, let your audience relate with your presentation all through, because you want them to own or to accept your product, and to basically be interested in whatever it is that you're doing, or whatever it is that you're presenting to them. Try as much as possible to use graphs, figures, pictures, images, but let them all be relevant. Good. So, for example, the use of bar graphs, they all have a place. The use of processes, if it's a machine you're trying to explain, the machine runs from this point to the next point, or for example what you have over there, it is a certain process. Processes are explained that way. Avoid using too many words. That is much easier for your audience to remember. Then again, when you're interested in telling people that this thing will be, it will perform better, graphs really help with that. Or if you're trying to show the negative or positive sides of a certain technology, whatever it is that you're talking about, let graphs be used, or let the graphs really feature. Good. So again, ensure that you have enough images of what the object that you're talking about as much as possible. For those who've interacted with, they know I really like these 2 images. That's why I've put them there. Yeah, they're just nice because they engage the brain of the listener. Good. Good. So in your presentation, try as much as possible to ensure that you work with very few words per slide. Yeah. Try to use bullets. Yeah. To list points. Then you can also work with phrases. And if you have a phrase, do not mix a phrase with some bullets and some other bullets after the phrase. Then, of course, you also need to pick out the highlights so that someone is able to go home with something that, or rather, they can actually leave your presentation knowing there's something that they can actually deliberate on or think about thereafter. Good. So what was appearing there was something that you shouldn't present too much text, and it is a mistake we often make, where you come up with a write-up. That's what you'll start with, of course. You do the write-up, and then after that you prepare your presentation. What happens? You have very little time for your presentation, so you just pick content from your write-up and just paste it there. And the end effect of that is, of course, that everything that you present, it becomes very difficult to engage your listener. Good. So again, ask your audience questions. Yeah, and of course, anytime that you ask a question, leave enough time and between questions, or also maybe repeat the question in case your audience did not understand. So I asked you a question, what do you call this thing? So I'm sure by now someone already has an answer to that. Some knew the answer but they never spoke. And so that's, what do you call it? Is it just a screen or? Yeah? Huh?
It's an LED visual board.
Good. Now the others, I'm sure half know, the other half may not be knowing that. Yeah, okay. So you heard what he said, eh? It's an LED visual board. Very good. Another thing about presentation is how it is that you present yourself. Yeah, the non-verbal communication. So clothing, gesture, expressions, and stance. Okay. So if I engaged you, and of course I was like this all the time, then that's a lazy posture, isn't it? So it gives you a cue to do the same thing, also engage in a lazy posture, then what will happen? You will drift off, isn't it? Yeah, there are all those things. Expressions. Now, it's important that you have the right expression because you must be relating with whatever it is that you're presenting. Yeah? Good. So, volume of speech. If, of course, you're using a microphone, then you need to tone down. I talk loudly. So I think I'm talking too loudly now that my voice is being amplified. And so on and so forth. I normally have a problem with the last one, but it's something that we all need to practice. Yeah, pausing between presentations. Dress professionally. If you're selling an idea, then appear like that idea. Okay. If you come in shorts, if I came here in shorts to make this presentation, I think there would be a problem, isn't it? Yeah. Already, I have deviated your minds now to start thinking about why is it dressed like that? Yeah. I didn't come in a tie. The presenter was standing here was in a tie and a suit. Yeah. I don't know whether well you feel I can't take his presentation seriously. The other guy, but of course he was also presenting something quite serious, isn't it? It was about IP. So imagine he was dressed like me and he was coming to tell you about very serious things like IP. Yeah. Okay, I'm telling you about talking, so I think, well, I'm allowed to dress the way I'm dressed, but good. So another thing is ensure that you're comfortable in whatever it is that you're in. Good. So the other thing is ensure that you relate with your audience during the presentation. And do not look too much into, I think I have a slide on that, do not look too much on to the slide. So where all the time basically your focus is there. So next slide please. Yeah, okay, anyway, facial expressions, very critical. I have never thought, I was trying to imagine someone would actually make a presentation for purposes of, you're presenting something very sad. Yeah, it has a sad beginning and a sad conclusion. Why would you make such a presentation? So anyway, I don't think the last one really applies, but there are some expressions of course, you're engaged with whatever it is that you're talking about, and others are you're just indifferent. Yeah, you are just making a presentation. Again, for you, you will be selling your ideas. It's very critical that your audience sees actually that you are engaging with, or you relate with your product. Yeah, and that is actually what they will buy. They will buy more of what it is that, or how it is that you express yourself, than even the content itself. Okay, good. So, gestures, postures, stand upright. I think I have failed in that one, but again, I explained why. It is about talking that I'm telling you about. So then, of course, I just cannot stand here and tell you now. Next slide is about posture and movement. You should not move a lot and stuff like that. The gestures that you present. Anyway, just let's move on to the next slide. You understand the point. Good. So here are good examples of how it is that you may want to relate. And again, like I said, how you present yourself, you're giving your audience a cue as to how it is that they should also relate with you during the presentation. Yeah. So especially that, if you slump forward, then of course they will do the same thing. Yeah, try that. Good. So the next thing is vocals. So we have pitch, volume, rate of talking, what you emphasize on, and then of course where you put your pauses. I think I had something like this before. Important to do. This is what I really spent a lot of time doing just before I came here for the next part of the presentation. It's basically checking your slides for their accuracy and organization so that there's a proper flow. Now, ensure that you know what it is that you're working with before you go there. I think one of the things that most of you have gotten or have mastered experience at some point is you have a presenter who comes and they don't know how to plug in their laptops to the system. They don't know which key to use on their laptops to make the presentation come up. I think for some of you, that will be something that you need to learn. Yeah, yeah. Know how to relate with the PowerPoint and what button does what. Good. So it's important also to have something that you can point with. And then, of course, always ensure that you have a backup of your slides. And then, of course, rehearse your presentation before you go to make it. Good. It depends on exactly what it is or the purpose of your presentation. If I made these slides or if I related these slides just a few minutes ago, then I would have a challenge with them. But because I do this quite often, then maybe it may take me just like 10 minutes to prepare. But I warn you against that because as you will see in a short time, you end up also putting in mistakes or leaving mistakes in your presentation. Good. So here, things that you shouldn't do. You see, if you really need to time your presentation, just place your watch in front of you. If it's a stopwatch, let it be in front of you so that you take a glance when you just glance at it. Rather than, yeah, who should be getting more impatient? Is it your audience or you? Yeah, it's your audience who should be getting impatient. So never look at that and then you start saying, oh, I have no time left. Yeah, you're wasting time talking about the time that you do not have. Then the other thing is, of course, how it is that you relate to the screen. Fortunately, this one is well positioned. We also have things like the postures of pocketing when you're presenting, but that is relative. Okay, next one. Good. I'm a victim of. Okay. Yeah. It is very good. Sometimes this may come due to a habit, but it is a habit that you can actually break. Yeah, it is a habit that you can break. So what we are normally taught to do is to look for another stopwatch to replace the arms and arm and hose and so on and so forth. But again, it also depends on your audience. Some do not mind, some really do mind. Yeah, so strike a balance somewhere. Good. Ensure that you do not read directly from the slides, just like I said. Then of course, the thing about switching back and forth between slides. This is about preparation. I will give you a technique to ensure that you do not switch between slides or move back and forth. One of the ways of doing that is when you rehearse through your presentation, you realize, oh, maybe I presented a map of Kenya at some point, then I move on, and then I realize that I still need the same map. Just put it there. Don't go back to the map. Ensure that the same slide comes again. Yeah, that way there will always be a clear flow in your presentation rather than you moving back and forth, back and forth. You better repeat a slide, especially where you know you need to emphasize on a point that was there previously, or a point relates to an image that you presented previously. Put the slide there. Okay? You better have the slide repeating 3 times rather than you scrolling up and down all the time. Good. Always work with material that you can answer questions from. So do not present a formula to people that you actually do not understand, but somehow you know that it relates to the solution that you came up with. Don't put it there. Good. So here we go. This was the last slide, so this gives you a cue to tell you exactly where we are at. I have finished it. I have finished my presentation. That has taken me how many minutes? 25 minutes. Anyway, so time, very critical. Yeah, the stopwatch again. The needs of the audience, critical. Have a logical flow in your presentation. Relate with your presentation equipment. Then ensure that you have enough visual aids, and by these we talked about, especially the figures, images, graphs, trends, flow charts that you use. They relate better than text with the audience. Then of course, there is a part of working on supporting data, and you as a presenter, you must think of yourself they are presenting. Good. So those are some of my references. There is one that's missing. I couldn't get it, I needed to put it there. So just move back. You must give credit to your sources. You must give credit to your sources. So whatever I presented here is not 100% original. People started presenting a long time ago. So over time they have gathered, these points of exactly what your presentation should be all about. So much about that. Give credit where it is due. Okay? Yes. Thank you very much. That is the first part of my presentation. So do I stop here or do I go on? I can finish. Okay, good. So the last part, I think this one will not take very long. Now we talked about the presentation. I presented this, or rather I prepared this the way it was listed on the invite. I ought to have done it the other way around. Technical report and then the presentation, but it is okay. We will just do it this way. So now we can slide on to the next slide. So, technical report writing. This is about presenting your ideas in writing. We just talked about how you present your ideas, verbally, to your audience. This is in writing. Now, the key thing that you need to note about technical report writing, or when it comes to writing, you have to be as detailed as possible, and you have to have a proper flow and so on and so forth, because you will not, or your audience, not your audience, the reader has no opportunity to question your work that they are reading. So if you leave gaps in your work, then of course what will happen is, especially if someone is assessing a proposal that you've written, you want some funding, or whatever it is, what you end up with is someone just turning down the proposal because they really cannot understand what exactly it is that you're looking for. So it is important that you bring all the bottom lines to the top. It's very important in any report that you write. And normally this is expressed by what we call an abstract, as I'll mention shortly. Good, so what are the contents? There is report writing, presentations and assessment. This is what I'm saying. It ought to have been in the other way, or it ought to have been presented the other way, but you can move on to the next slide. Good, so we start now by formatting. We always start with a title page, an appropriate title. You must have the title formatted as per the audience to which you're presenting. Okay, good. So how it is that now the report should run. Just like I gave a disclaimer there before, I realized that some of these slides were mixed up. I just couldn't figure them out in the short time that I had when I was presenting. We can just move on to the next slide. Okay, let me do something I shouldn't do. Just move back. I never talked about the nomenclature. We all know what that is. Okay, yeah, good. Let me just go over this slide then before I start talking about other things. We talked about the title page. We have the declaration. Some reports require you to declare, especially when authenticity is of paramount importance. You must make a declaration. That's the purpose of the declaration page. Yeah, where you declare that you're the authentic author and the contents. Then we also do have the list of figures. Sometimes they're optional, and list of figures are optional. Nomenclature, this is where you decide now to write. If you're going to use abbreviations, TOC, it's very important that you tell people, if you see TOC in my report, it means table of contents. Yeah, and we normally order them alphabetically, the way they appear. So, JKUAT, you have to explain. JKUAT is Jomo Kenyatta University. That is basically the nomenclature. Then also, where you have formulas and symbols that you use, that is also captured in the nomenclature. Yeah, so delta for an engineer is not delta for a physicist. Yeah, it's not the same thing. Yeah, or I think the only common symbol we use is theta, isn't it? Yeah, that's an angle. But for a mathematician, theta does not necessarily represent an angle. So it's very important that you actually state what your theta is about from the onset. Okay, then sometimes you also indicate, unless otherwise specified, yeah, all symbols have the usual meanings. That is also specified sometimes. Okay, but that is only when you know that the reader of your report is in your area and not in another area. Good, now we can move on. Now, the actual contents of the main body, yeah, just like it was featured there before, will contain this: introduction, literature review, methodology, results, discussion and conclusion, and recommendations. But recommendations, again, that is optional depending on who it is that you're presenting the report to. Okay, so let's move on to next slide. Then, towards the end, we also put references. Now, references are not numbered, so where you have the reference, do not make it read as chapter number 7. Yeah, if you had recommendations as chapter number 6. Appendices, make sure that your appendices are numbered this way: Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3. And you separate the appendices depending on the content. So maybe the first appendix is the figures that you used. The second one is maybe the graphs that you referred to. The third one would be the source code, and so on and so forth. Do not mix them. Appendices are not, cannot just be lumped together. Okay, good. Yeah, so I think we missed a slide. Just move back a bit. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, now, these are the contents. Now, I think we can move on to the next one. Just tap. I think there's a problem. Tap so that, yeah, this is where you need to learn the equipment you're working with, so that, okay, again, yes, there was a problem with reordering of slides, so that's why it's appearing this way. Okay, good. So, about the abstract. Now, the abstract has got to be a one-page document. It's an abstract is 1 page long. It could even just occupy just half a page, but it must contain 3 critical elements. Your introduction. The introduction is basically just a background. What is the project all about? Then we must have a methodology. You notice that there should be a comma there. We have results, conclusions. You make sure that you take us back to, you let us know exactly, you put us in the right place to understand this project is about this is what we did, this is what we achieved, and from this we can draw the following conclusions. We never number items in the abstract. We never reference, we never refer to other people. Sometimes people really feel that maybe you are bringing out a controversial point, so you want the person who's reading the abstract to know that you can actually refer to someone else in case you doubt my point. So people end up putting references there. We don't reference in the abstract, and we also do not use uncommon abbreviation. The other thing that you do not do is, for example, in your abstract, you're not going to write Jomo Kenyatta University, brackets, JKUAT. We don't do that. Just say Jomo Kenyatta University has this equipment that is no longer used. We intend to use this equipment in order to achieve the following results. And then, of course, we hope that these results will be of some use to the institution. Something like that. Okay. Yeah, just tap it again. There's something about pagination, okay? Now, you need to know that the first part of your, what we now call the preliminaries, the way we do the pagination is a bit different from how it is that you paginate the main body. The main body normally will have Arabic numbers. The pagination that you have there before, we use Roman numerals. Good. Now, introduction. Yeah, again, tap it again. Yeah, okay, good. So, with the introduction, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? That is actually what your introduction is about. What is the background information that you can provide at that point? And this is a framework. It's not a literature review. Please note that. It's just a framework. Let's understand that there is this particular problem that you've actually been observing and you feel that this problem requires to be solved. That's what we talk about here. And of course, we need to understand where exactly it is that you're headed. Yeah. We have actually established that this is a problem that requires a solution, and we will attempt to solve this problem in this report. Next slide. Yeah, tap again. Good. So, after you do your introduction, we now have what you call the literature review. This is where we now state what the current practices are. Yeah, this kind of a system, do we have it in this country? This kind of a gadget that you want to develop, this kind of a technology, if it's a cooking device or something like that, do we have it? No. Is it somewhere else? Yes. Is there something similar existing? Yes. So, how much is already known about that particular product that it is that you're talking about? This again also helps you too. It helps in increasing your credibility, in that you will not attempt to sell an idea like you are the original creator of that idea, or the originator, of a certain idea. And yet that is actually not the case. Let people know that that idea has actually been explored, but you're trying to explore it further, or you're trying to bring in a new dimension to it. Good. And now that is actually what you now do with the gaps, because you now state, all these people have actually done so much. What I have seen in the market looks like this. Yeah. These methods of preparing this particular type of meal are like this, but I have my own unique way. I think if we tried this, the meal will end up tasting slightly different, yeah, or something like that. That is basically what you bring out. You want to attempt now to change the approach in order to get maybe a different result, same result, but maybe at a cheaper cost, and so on and so forth. Good. So thereafter, now you now state exactly what is the problem that you're trying to solve. So we normally have what we call a problem statement, which will normally be a 2-line or a 3-line statement, yeah, or 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Yeah, that is the problem statement. Good. Then after that, we have now your objectives. You set out what your objectives are. No, just go back. Yeah, go back a bit. Good. So I'll be forgiven for moving back and forth with the slides. Like I said, it's not a good practice. But we have the statement of the problem. Then, of course, we have the objectives. Then, of course, thereafter, I thought there was a slide that states we have what you call the methodology that comes hereafter. And then we also state what our expected outcomes are with the kind of work that we're doing. Moving on to the next slide. Good. Now we have the methodology. Now, the part of the methodology is where you now tell your reader exactly how it is that you did your work. And this is a step-by-step process where you state where you started and how it is that you came up with the final product. That is what happens in the methodology. In the methodology, we do not keep referring to other systems and how it is that those other systems have been developed. You have the opportunity to do that in the literature review. Here in the methodology, if you're going to refer to someone else, it's basically now the method used by so and so can actually be used here in this manner. Yeah. Or you want to justify your approach by saying so and so used this particular method to achieve this solution. So you will borrow the same. You borrow the same and you apply it, or you change it. You're trying to qualify your work. You can do that. You can do reference in your methodology, but basically you're qualifying your work as you move on. So how did I achieve at my results? Try to be as detailed as possible and ensure that all the details that you include are relevant. Okay, then we have the outcomes. Tap again, please. Again. Yes, okay, we have the results. Good, now what we now do is after the methodology, after we've stated the step-by-step process of coming up with the final product, we now state what is this product that we have? What is this product? This is basically where you now express your findings. You express your findings. Now, your findings must be qualified now in terms of data. You must say that indeed I set out to achieve something that can relay electricity from one point to the other. I have come up with it and I have measured and I've established that I'm indeed able to relay electricity from one point to the other using this particular device. However, it performs this way and it performs that way. Yeah. Now, at this point, you do not, when you talk about results, those are just results. You will just state how it is performing. If you're presenting what you call results and discussion, then you may discuss the results at that point. Say that indeed it is conveying electricity from point A to point B. Now, it doesn't compare very well with the other devices that exist in the market, in that we're losing a lot of electricity in between those 2 points. Yeah, good. Also critical, use images, because whatever it is that you've come up with, most of the times, it is a product that someone can actually see. Yeah, so try to present that there. Graphs are critical, just by to mention. Good, so note that when you're presenting your results, you're not concluding. Yeah, you're not concluding. Do not draw conclusions in the results. This is the part where most of our students get it wrong, in that you conclude or you start criticizing your work in the results. Results are just that. Someone should be able to know, fine, you came up with this device. Now this device performs in a particular way. If they now want to know what your opinion is, they need to look elsewhere, but you're just stating exactly how it performs. A good example of what results are, like when you buy a device in the market, you always find they're called specifications, isn't it? But do they put warnings in between the specifications? They don't. So you have specs. So basically, it's the same thing that you'll actually be stating. You'll be saying that it performs between 100 and 250 volts, yeah, and so on and so forth. That's what you state there. Then, if there are problems, is you tell people, please note, where you have very unstable grids, this product will not perform very well. You state that elsewhere, but not where those are not specific. So you can actually consider the results, especially when you're developing a product, as the specs, okay? Yeah, of your product, what it is that you've come up with. And it's not what you wished to come up with, it is what you've come up with. Good. Next slide. Now, of course, we have conclusions. Now, tap again, please. In the conclusions, this is where you now examine your results. Yeah, you examine your results, but even as I move down, I need to pick out on the last one. Do not restate the results. We are examining them or putting them on a weight and drawing a conclusion. So what we state is, now we came up with a product that can convey, and in our opinion, or as per objective number 1 of my work, this product fulfilled that objective. Objective number 2, it met the objective, and so on and so forth. So it is about an interpretation of your results. What significance are they? Yeah, so we talk about the specs, the specifications of the product. So can it actually be used for the purpose for which you developed it? This is actually now how it is that you need to visualize how it is that your conclusions should look like. You had specs that you specified. Do they suit a particular market? Did you test? If you tested, then you can actually say that indeed your audience, or rather the consumers of the product, were satisfied with the product at that point. Okay? Then at this point you may also say that maybe they were not satisfied and it is recommended that maybe in future you should improve on 1 or 2 or 3 aspects. Good. Then if there is something very unique, sometimes it's also important to basically bring the last point to the top. In that you might have just come up with a weak product, but it has one very unique characteristic. This is basically what you can, you drum up now, the support for your product using that one particular feature. Yeah, so that someone actually feels that your work was of any relevance. Because sometimes what happens is that some people are not really able to relate even with, so fine, you came up with something, you yourself, you agree that it has a few shortcomings, but does it have one good aspect that you can actually dwell on? Okay, good. Then again, do not forget to talk about automation. Your sources, then make sure that your sources are accurate. Okay, make sure that your sources are accurate. That means that we can trace back. Yeah, we can try and confirm some of the facts that you've stated. Can we actually confirm that actually they're true? Good. So there we are. Just an example of how it is that you present your sources. Next slide. This is basically how it is that you should present equations, figures, and tables. Just slide on. An equation written this way does not read very well, the first way, but equations written this way are better to relate with, isn't it? Yeah, it's clear at that point. Same case applies to this, rather than when you put all the things on top of each other, where things are supposed to be on top of each other, where you have a denominator and numerator, you end up seeing everything appearing in the same line. Shouldn't be that way. And also ensure that you number your equations, you're working with equations, number them well. It's easier to read and easier to relate with the work. Okay. Good. So do not forget when you use figures and tables, because I don't have a slide of tables, you need to state it there, is that we must use captions, and a caption is very descriptive of the content or what is contained in a certain image. Good. And be consistent with your numbering. So you decide from the onset, are you working with a numbering system that relates with the charts, or are you working with the chapter, or are you just numbering your figures and tables as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That has to be consistent all through. Good. So over there you have how it is that someone can actually relate with what is contained in the figure. Good. So I am done. Yeah. Is it done? That is a sudden end to the presentation, but let's just about it. Yes. Good. So, questions? Yes.
Is there a limit to the number of slides you should prepare for a certain presentation, or does it depend with the type of presentation you're doing?
Good. I will give you a rule of thumb. How many slides do you have? There are 61. I think there are 61. I've been given 1 hour. Yeah, so that means that I would basically spend just a minute on each slide. And I think I spent slightly less than a minute on each slide because I still have like 4 minutes or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're given 10 minutes, try as much as possible to have everything that you need to say contained within 10 minutes. That can exclude the title page, or if you have figures that do not require explanation, you can include them, or maybe even the last slide. Why am I talking about the last slide? Because sometimes The last slide, that's where you'll pause, or that's where you'll end your presentation. Maybe it contains your conclusions. Okay? Yeah. Just a trick, sometimes you run out of time. So to ensure that your audience is able to read the presentation, or rather to see exactly what your conclusions are, or what is contained in the last slide, do not put the last slide reading end. That's what people do. Let the end sentence come at the end, but let maybe the critical or the highlights of your presentation be contained on the last slide. Yeah, that's a slide that you end with. That really helps. But the rule of the thumb, 10 minutes, 10 slides. That really helps. Yes?
How best should I make my table of contents?
How best should you?
Make my table of contents.
Okay. It is a part that I ought to have mentioned at the beginning. Now, with the PowerPoint, I think the many presentations, I think I talked about the softwares that we use. I didn't talk about the softwares that we use also for making reports. The one that most of us use, or most of you, let me put it that way, I don't use it. We have Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word bases the table of contents on headers, the headers that you use. So if you have a chapter 1, chapter 1.1, where you have chapter 1 is introduction, 1.1 is background, 1.2 is current, situation in the country, something like that. Good. So then you may get into a bit of detail and say situation in the north, situation in the south. So that becomes 1.2.1. Then you may want to state agreeing, disagreeing ideas, or rather people who are positive in the northern part about a certain idea, people who do not agree with a certain idea in the north. That now becomes 1.2.1.1, something like that. Huh? Good. So those are headers that you've used. So each header that you've used gets a number. What will happen is that Word will allow you to create a table of contents, and once you tell it to create the table of contents, it's going to pick the headers, to pick your headers, and then you will now tell it to what level do you want the headers. So do you want to go to 1.2.1.1 or 1.2.1? A good rule of the thumb is just work with 3 levels. Chapter, section, subsection. You stop there. Okay? But this is normally automatically generated, and I would encourage you to also ensure that you work with the automatically generated table of contents. Do not type out your own table of contents, especially if you're working with Word. Okay? Another question? Yes.
The difference between slide presentation and the oral presentation where you don't have slides.
Yes.
What should be the law or the flow of what you're saying? Because sometimes you may be surprised by something or organization and someone will just see what you do.
Yes.
You don't have slides. So
What becomes critical when you are given, sometimes it also happens that you're told to stand there and in 5 minutes explain what your innovation is about, isn't it? So the critical thing is we say that there's that part of your presentation that you keep repeating, because this audience that you're presenting to, how do I put it? What is their interest? What is their interest? Is it an informative or a persuasive presentation? This actually should now guide what exactly it is that you should talk about. So we say that if it's informative, it's very critical that you highlight, you go through, this product is derived from this, it has these features, it can do 1, 2, 3, and 4, it cannot do this, and you conclude, something like that. Those should be your highlights when you're making a presentation. But when it is persuasive, then you must remember the things, you pick like 3 points, and those are the points that you should keep talking about and repeating. Pick like 3 points or 4 points, dwell on them. Because you realize when you prepare a presentation, especially the images that you use become critical in the presentation, isn't it? But what is the motivation behind the presentation? So if it is the first one, make sure that you go through, if it is informative, make sure that you pick out the highlights of exactly what your innovation is about, or the system that it is that you're talking about. What is it about? it starts here, it does this, and you put this in, you get this out. Yeah, so you can spend a little bit of time trying to explain what it is that you're putting and what you're putting in, and what is coming out, and whether it is what you actually wanted. But if it's persuasive, remember, it's 3 highlights which you talk about, and always try to bring a connection. Ensure there's always a connection between the 3. Yeah. So again, when it's detailed, if you had prepared it there, the powers on or something like that, there's also something else that featured, and it's about the handout. So make sure that when you're making your presentation, you have a handout. Yeah, you have a handout. So the handout will help you remember exactly what it is that you want your presentation to be about. Yeah, it really helps. But make sure that you do not read from that handout. Yeah, because again, it is your presentation. So you know what is contained there. We don't expect you to be reading it. Okay. Another question? Good, then I think that sums up that part. I hope I've been of some use to you. Yeah, and I hope maybe you'll be able to apply the skills that you've learned also as you prepare for the Tech Expo and even thereafter. Okay? Good. So thank you so much.